Good morning, students. Today we will discuss about laws of inheritance, which is also known as principle of inheritance. So after conducting monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross, Mendel put forwarded three laws which are commonly known as laws of inheritance, and they are law of dominance, law of segregation, and third one is law of independent assortment. So first we will start with the law of dominance. So what is law of dominance? So according to the law of dominance, the trait which will express itself in F1 generation will be dominant trait, and the trait which fails to express itself in F1 generation will be recessive trait. So law of dominance is based on monohybrid cross. So try to recall that monohybrid cross. So when a pure tall plant is crossed with pure dwarf plant, that is capital T will be crossed with small t, then all the progeny in F1 generation will be tall. None of the progeny will show the recessive trait, that is dwarf. None of the progeny will be small t. So all the F1 progeny, they will be tall one. So here the cross was made between tall plant and dwarf plant, but none of the progeny in F1 generation was dwarf. So only tall plant, they are able to express themselves. So tall trait, tall stem height will be the dominant trait over the short stem height. So this is the law of dominance. The law of dominance can be summarized as given below. Various hereditary characteristics or traits are controlled by factors. So we have to remember that when Mendel he was performing that monohybrid cross dihybrid cross, at that time there was no any discovery of gene. So Mendel, for gene, he coined that for the gene he used the word factor. Later on gene was discovered. So always you have to remember that according to Mendel, that gene was factor. Factors occur in pairs. The factors contain the information about the form of a trait. Out of these, only one factor expresses itself in the F1 generation, and the factor expressed is called dominant, and the one hidden as recessive. The recessive factor appears again in the F2 generation. So this is the summarization of Mendel's monohybrid cross. So we have to remember that instead of gene, Mendel he used to term that thing as a factor. Now come to the second law of inheritance, which is the law of segregation. The law of segregation states that allelic pairs separate or segregate during gamete formation, and the paired condition is restored by the random fusion of gametes during fertilization. So this is the law of segregation. So in law of segregation, the allele pair, so any character, it is governed by one pair of gene which is known as allele. So in monohybrid cross, so this law of law of segregation, it is also based on monohybrid cross. So in monohybrid cross, so when Mendel he performed or he crossed that pure tall plant having genotype capital T with the pure dwarf plant having genotype small t. So any character is coded by one pair of gene which is known as allele, that is capital T, it is representing the one pair of allele which is coding the trait, that is tall height, and small t, this is the one pair of allele which is coding the trait dwarf height. So these allele pair, they separate or segregate during gamete formation. So when the formation of gamete will take place, so these allele pair, they will separate or get segregated, and randomly they will fuse during the process of fertilization. During the formation of zygote, random fusion of gametes will takes place. So this is known as law of segregation. It is also known as law of purity of gamete. Law of segregation is based on the following conclusions. Each trait is produced by two factors. The factors may be similar or dissimilar. Each true breeding form possesses two similar factors, and each hybrid form has two dissimilar factors. Each gamete, male or female, possesses only one factor of the pair. A gamete is therefore pure for a trait. There is a random fusion of male and female gamete takes place to form zygote. The offspring formed from a zygote receives only one factor from each parent. The factors do not blend in F1 generation but retain their individuality. A recessive factor is not altered by the presence of dominant factor. Now come to the last and the third principle of inheritance, which is the law of independent assortment. So law of independent assortment can be defined as out of two pairs of contrasting traits of character, the distribution of the member of one pair into gamete is independent of the other one. Or we can also define this law of independent assortment as inheritance of one trait is independent of the inheritance of other trait. So law of independent assortment, it is based on dihybrid cross. So after performing dihybrid cross, Mendel he put forwarded law of independent assortment. So dihybrid cross, in dihybrid cross, Mendel he considered two characters at a time and he studied the inheritance pattern of two characters simultaneously. So in this diagram you can see that here cross was made between round and yellow seed with wrinkled and green seed. So two plants, two pea plants having the one plant having the seed round and yellow color, and the second pea plant having the seed wrinkled and green color. So we all know that round seed and yellow seed color is the dominant trait. If the seed will be round, it is a dominant trait, and if the seed color will be yellow, so this one is also dominant trait. So both the dominant trait is present in this plant and both the recessive trait is present in this plant. So if in dihybrid cross, so when he crossed these two plants, so in F1 generation, all the plants, all the 16 plants having the genotype capital R small r, capital Y small I, and all the 16 progeny in F1 generation, so they show the dominant trait, both the trait was dominant. But in F2 generation, the genotypic ratio was 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1, means 9 of the plant which show both the dominant trait, that is their seed will was round and the seed color was yellow. So both the dominant trait was present in 9 plant, but 3 plants they were round with green seed. So round seed is a dominant trait, but green seed color is a recessive trait. Similarly, the next 3 plants they produce wrinkled seed but yellow in color. So wrinkled seed is a recessive trait, but yellow color of seed is a dominant trait. And the one single plant was there which was wrinkled. The seed of that plant was wrinkled, and the color of the seed is also green. So this is the phenotypic ratio in F2 generation of dihybrid cross, that is 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. So just like monohybrid cross, Mendel was expecting that in dihybrid cross also he will get similar type of result. So try to recall what is the phenotypic ratio in F2 generation of monohybrid cross. So it was 3 is to 1, means out of 4 plants in F1 F2 generation, 3 plants they show the dominant trait and only one plant it show it shows the recessive trait. So similarly Mendel was expecting that in dihybrid cross also he will get this type of ratio in F2 generation. So he was expecting that in dihybrid cross he will get 15 is to 1 ratio, means 15 plants will possess both the dominant trait and only one plant will possess the recessive trait. Means he was expecting that 15 plant will be round seed with yellow seed color, and there will be only one plant which will possess wrinkled seed and green color. But the phenotypic ratio was quite different. The phenotypic ratio in F2 generation of dihybrid cross was 9:3:3:1. So he was expecting these 9 plants. He was also expecting this one plant, but he never expected these 3 and 3 plants. So by seeing this, Mendel put forwarded the third law of inheritance, which is the law of independent assortment. So what is law of independent assortment? So out of two pairs of contrasting trait of character, so here what are the two pairs of contrasting trait of character? So first pair is seed shape and second pair is seed color. That seed shape having two traits, round and wrinkled, seed color having two traits, yellow and green. So out of two pairs of contrasting trait of character, the distribution of the member of one pair into gamete is independent of the other one. Suppose that if in the gamete, if the round, the gene which will code the round seed of the pea plant, if it is coming in any gamete, then it is not necessary that the dominant trait of the other, the gene which will code the dominant trait for the other character, it will also come into that gamete. So it is independent of the other pair. So this is law of independent assortment. So similarly we can define that inheritance of one trait is independent of the inheritance of other trait. So this much only in this video. In next video we will study a new topic. Thank you. Have a nice day.